Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kita mulakan kelas kita pada pagi ini dengan membaca Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Arrahmanirrahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Shiratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayidina Muhammadin asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, ampunkanlah dosa-dosa kami, ampunkanlah dosa kedua ibu bapa kami dan kasihlah mereka sebagaimana mereka mengasihi kami di masa kecil. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, kurniakanlah kepada kami ilmu yang bermanfaat untuk diri kami, keluarga kami, agama kami, bangsa kami dan negara kami. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, berilah kepada kami kejayaan di dunia dan di akhirat. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Wa sallallahu ala sayidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Okey, alhamdulillah. Kita bersyukur kepada Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Pada pagi ini kita dapat meneruskan kelas kita yang pertama untuk semester ni. Jadi yang pertama sekali saya ingin mengucapkan selamat tahniah dan selamat kepada anda semua yang telah uh, dapat masuk ke subjek ini iaitu FR 620. Okey. Jadi untuk yang pertama sekali saya akan ambil attendance akan ambil kedatangan dan saya akan panggil dan awak kena sebutlah saya ya. Jadi attendance yang ada pada saya ni, yang pertama Ahmad Fikri, ada tak?
Ada, sir. Ada, sir.
Ada
Ada.
Fatin Hazwani.
Saya, sir. Saya, sir.
Tak ada. Muhammad Haris.
Saya, sir.
Ada.
Ada.
Oh, ada dua Haris kat sini. Satu lagi Muhammad Haris. Hairul Nizam. Ada. Okey. Yang angkat tangan tu Haris ke? Muhammad
Bukan.
Iqbal. Muhammad Iqbal. Tak ada. Muhammad Irfan.
Sir, yang angkat tangan tu Fatin Azwani.
Siapa tu? Nurul Atikah.
Betul.
Suara tak dengar
Tadi dia dah nyaut dah tapi
Suara saya tak
kita
didengari.
tak dengar. Dengar.
Suara saya tak kuat.
Dah kuat dah. Suara dia pun tadi ada, sir. Cuma saya tak dengar.
Suara saya tak kuat ke? Hello.
Dah okey dah, sir?
Ya?
Dah okey dah?
Oh, saya pun tak dengar awak juga ni. Boleh dengar tak suara saya? Tak boleh dengar Okey, testing. Boleh dengar tak suara saya?
Tak jelas sir.
Sekarang dengar tak? Tak jelas?
Dengar, sir.
Dengar? Dengar jelas
Jelas.
Okay, thank you. Muhammad Iqbal tadi ada tak? Iqbal, ada tak? Tak ada. Muhammad Irfan,
Sir, Fatin Hazwani tadi ada.
siapa dia?
Fatin Hazwani.
Fatin, okay. Izzat, Irfan Izzat? Tak ada. Muhammad Syukri?
Ada sir.
Okay, bagus. Muhammad Zaim? Zaim? Tak ada. Nur Farisha? Nur Farisha? Tak ada. Nur Farah?
Ada, sir.
Ada, okay. Nurul Atikah, dia tadi yang bercakap tadi kan? Nurul Fatin
Betul,
Atirah?
sir.
Sir, Nur Farisha ada.
Farisha ada. Nur Fatin Atirah?
Saya sir.
Nurul Syakira?
Saya, sir.
Okay. Rus Syazwana? Rus Syazwina?
Saya sir.
Okay. Siti Aisyah?
Saya sir.
Okay. Siti Farhana?
Saya sir.
Syafia?
Saya, sir.
Wan Nurliana?
Saya sir.
Okay. Aina Fazira? Tak ada. Aiman Haikal? Tak ada. Hasna Nadira?
Saya sir.
Okay. Izyan Syazwani?
Saya sir.
Okay. Nur Syahira? Tak ada. Nur Syasha Syazwina?
Saya sir.
Okay. Nur Syam Zulaika?
Saya, sir.
Okay. Next. Nur Azian? Tak ada. Muhammad Izzadin? Tak ada. Muhammad Azamuddin? Tak ada. Okay. Ada tak nama yang saya tak sebutkan? Ada tak nama yang saya tak sebutkan? Tak ada ya? Okey. Settle kedatangan hari ini. Okey, jadi kita mengucapkan syukur pada Allah SWT pada hari ini kita dapat memulakan kelas kita. Jadi untuk hari pertama ni kita set kita set ataupun kita betulkan niat kita untuk menuntut ilmu supaya kita dapat betul-betul belajar apa yang sepatutnya kita belajar pada semesta ini. Jadi menuntut ilmu itu adalah wajib bagi setiap lelaki dan perempuan. Jadi awak menuntut ilmu ni adalah merupakan satu ibadah kepada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala sebab Allah telah menyuruh kita supaya menuntut ilmu. Jadi ilmu yang paling utama untuk dituntut adalah ilmu fardu ain supaya kita dapat melaksanakan solat kita, puasa kita dan rukun-rukun Islam yang lain pada masa yang sama yang kita menutup aurat dan sebagainya. Jadi menuntut ilmu walaupun kita menuntut ilmu akaun ni adalah dikatakan sebagai ilmu alat ilmu alat. Maknanya bila kita belajar ni kita akan gunakan ilmu ataupun kita punya kelulusan ini untuk mencari rezeki, untuk mendapatkan pekerjaan dan mencari rezeki. Jadi ramai yang risau selepas belajar ni dapat ke kerja kan. Sebenarnya kerja itu adalah merupakan salah satu daripada rezeki lah, ya, rezeki yang Allah bagi. Jadi setiap manusia yang lahir ada rezeki masing-masing. Jadi Allah lah yang menentukan rezeki. Kita berusaha, Allah akan bagi rezeki kita. Jadi ada yang bertanya dekat saya, adakah sekarang ni accountant masih diperlukan? Jawapan saya memang accountant masih lagi diperlukan. Ya. Pada tahun 2024 ni, saya tengok banyak peluang pekerjaan yang memerlukan pelajar-pelajar ataupun bekas pelajar yang mempunyai kelulusan dalam bidang perakaunan dan juga bidang kewangan. Sehinggalah saya jumpa juga ada yang spesifik jawatan dia seperti accountant fixed asset. Cuba bayangkan ada accountant fixed asset, accountant revenue. Kan? Jadi maknanya sampai macam tu sekali keperluannya. Jadi jangan risau tentang rezeki dah. Ya. Rezeki ini akan telah ditentukan oleh Allah SWT. Kita berusaha sungguh-sungguh untuk kita belajar pandai-pandai. Ya. Kita punya subject matter kita iaitu accounting ni. Jadi jangan risau dengan artificial intelligence dan sebagainya lah. Jadi manusia tetap kena berfikir untuk kita nak buat account, kita tetap menggunakan akal fikiran yang kadang-kadang tidak boleh dicapai oleh artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence tu tidak boleh menggantikan sepenuhnya otak ataupun pemikiran manusia lah. Okay. Jadi setiap kali kita nak pergi ke kelas sama ada secara online ataupun secara fizikal ni, kita kena niat lah. Saja aku menuntut ilmu kerana Allah Ta'ala. Supaya ilmu yang kita dapat ini, ilmu yang berkat, yang membawa kita kepada keredaan Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Okey. Yang keduanya, kita punya kuliah ni dalam bentuk ODL selama 3 minggu. Kemudian selepas hari raya nanti, kita akan adakan kelas face to face, face to face, dan mungkin pada ketika itu lagi kita dapat memahami lah. Macam sekarang ni pun kena faham juga, walaupun 3 minggu secara ODL ni kita kena faham tajuk kita. Dan untuk makluman, for your information, tajuk kita daripada awal hingga akhir adalah Consolidated Financial Statement. Consolidated Financial Statement. Daripada awal hari pertama kita belajar hari ini sehinggalah kepada minggu yang ke-14, tajuknya adalah satu tajuk sahaja, iaitu Consolidated Financial Statement. Jadi sebentar lagi saya akan tunjukkan dia punya weekly lesson plan untuk kita sama-sama lihat apa yang kita perlu belajar pada sepanjang semester ini. Okey. Kemudian yang ketiga adalah berkaitan dengan penggunaan kertas dan pen lah. Jadi walaupun awak semua ada iPad ke, ada tab dan sebagainya, awak mencatat di handphone ataupun di mana-mana tempat yang dalam bentuk digital, tetapi saya juga suka sekiranya awak menggunakan pen dan pensel untuk mencatat, untuk membuat pengiraan dan sebagainya, untuk kita membiasakan diri kita dengan menjawab soalan test, soalan kuis, soalan peperiksaan, semuanya berada dalam keadaan di atas kertas. Jadi kalau kita dah biasa, kita menggunakan kertas dan pen untuk kita menulis, insya-Allah dia dapat membantu. Jadi ini merupakan semester yang ketiga lah yang saya cadangkan pada pelajar untuk menggunakan semula kertas dan pen. Dan saya lihat pencapaian dia meningkat. Pencapaian pelajar meningkat sebab bila kita nak semak balik kerja-kerja yang kita buat daripada minggu pertama, kita boleh tengok dalam bentuk di atas kertas. Kita boleh tengok kalau kita buat kesilapan pengiraan, kita jangan padam. Kita potong. Ataupun kita masa kita buat nota kali pertama, kita gunakan pen warna biru ataupun hitam. Bila kita potong tu, kita gunakan warna merah ataupun hijau. Supaya kita dapat melihat kesalahan yang ataupun kesilapan yang kita pernah buat dan kita tidak akan mengulangi lagi dalam test, dalam kuis dan dalam peperiksaan. Okey, itulah 3 nasihat. Mungkin dia lain kali lagi ada lagi nasihat-nasihat yang saya boleh kongsikan untuk kebaikan kita bersama. Jadi nasihat-nasihat saya tu adalah untuk kebaikan kita semualah, insyaAllah. Ya. Jadi yang pertama sekali, I would like to share with you the weekly lesson plan. Okay, I hope you can see from your device this weekly lesson plan. Okay, my name is Muhammad Halim Kadri. Okay, you can call me Dr. Halim. Okay, my office is at A010, tingkat bawah, blok apa nama blok ni? Blok A. Ya, blok A ya. Handphone seperti yang tertera, itu adalah email juga seperti yang tertera. Okay. So in the first 3 weeks we are going to have ODL. Dalam ODL ni pun kita dah ada 3 topik ya, bermula pada hari ini. Okay. First week we are going to learn about introduction to business combination. Second week we are going to learn about adjustment of intercompany transactions. In the week number 3 we are going to be introduced with consolidated statement of financial position under the first category or first type of group, that is fellow subsidiary. And then we are going to have a week, 1 week special break. Special break. Special break ni adalah special break untuk hari raya. Hari raya Aidilfitri yang dijangka akan berlangsung pada 10 hari bulan April. 10 hari bulan April. Dan pada 10, 11, 12, 13. Pada 13 hari bulan April, you kena kembali ke sini sebab pada 14 hari bulan April, kelas akan bermula. Kelas akan bermula secara fizikal. Okay, itu 3 minggu yang pertama, termasuklah special break 1 week. Okay, dan minggu yang keempat, you are going to continue with CSO PL. CSO PL. So tadi minggu ketiga CSOP, Consolidated Statement of Financial Position. Week number 4 is Consolidated Statement of Profit or Loss, Other Comprehensive Income, and Statement of Changes in Equity. Under the simplest group structure, that is fellow subsidiary. Okay. And then in week 5, we are going to learn about complex structure, week 5 and week 6. So in week 5, we are going to learn about vertical structure. In week 6, we are going to learn about mixed structure. So we have 3 category, 3 category of group structure. That is the fellow subsidiaries, number 1. Number 2 is vertical. Number 3 is mixed. Okay. And then in week 7, we are going to learn about accounting for associates and joint arrangement. Associate, So associate, okay, maybe you have certain knowledge about associate and joint venture, and we are going to learn about this. Okay. And then we are going to have a quiz on 10 May 2024, Friday, 8:15 to 9:45 at LT2. Okay, at LT2. Okay, please book the time and the date. Okay, don't allow any other event to happen at the same time, at the same date. Okay, and then number 8, week number 8, we are going to continue with accounting for associate and joint arrangement. And also, we are going to add some knowledge on increase in shareholding. And then in week 9, we are going to learn about increase in shareholding. Okay. After week 9, we are going to have another week break. That is Pesta Menuai. Special break for Pesta Menuai and Hari Gawai. Okay. And then we continue with week 10. In week 10, we are going to continue with decrease in shareholding. Week 11, still decrease in shareholding. Okay, and then week 12. Okay, at the end of week 11 or beginning of week 12, you are going to get your group project question. Group project question. Okay. And then in week 12, you are going to learn about foreign currency operation. And then you are going to have a test on 28 June. The same day, Friday, 8:50, 9:45. At the same place, LT2. In week 13 and week 14, we are going to learn about consolidated statement of cash flow. Okay. So end of week 14, you have to submit your group project. The group project comprises of 4 students in the group. After submission of the group project, okay, you are going to have a study leave, 1 week study leave. And then there will be a grade week, yeah, which is final exam weeks, yeah, starting from 15 July up to 4th August 2024. And then you are going to have semester break. You are going to have a semester break, the real semester break for about 1.5 month, for about 1.5 month. Almost 2 month, 2 month kan? 4 bulan 8 sampai 5 hari bulan 10, 2 bulan, Okay, that is about the content of the syllabus. Next, we are going to look at the coverage of assessments. So basically, we have 4 assessments. The first one is quiz. The second one is test. The third one is group project. And the last one is final examination. Okay, kita tengok markah dia dulu. Okay, total markah untuk quiz. Okay, tidak ditunjukkan. Total markah untuk quiz adalah 50. Okay, 50 marks. And it will become 10% of total marks. Okay, and then test will be 50 marks also. Okay, and it becomes 15%. And then group project will be 100 mark. 100 mark, and it becomes 15%. And the final exam will be 100 marks. It becomes 60%. Okay. So we, at the beginning of the semester, we already know the component of the topics to be covered in quiz. Yeah. So in quiz, we have 3 topics to be covered. That is introduction to business combination, consolidated statement of financial position, and complex group structure mix. Yeah, mix. That is for quiz. And the time taken is 1.5 hours. Next is component of topic in the test. You are going to be tested with CSOPL, other comprehensive income and consolidated statement of changes in equity. Okay. Next, complex group structure, vertical. On top of that, you are also going to be tested with accounting for associate and either one here with green color, increase or decrease, either one. Yeah, increase or decrease. That is test. What about group project? Group project will be more comprehensive, whereby you are going to be tested with introduction to relevant standard, CSOFP, CSOPL, OCHI, and CSOCIE, complex structure, vertical or mixed, either one. Only one. Yeah. And then accounting for associate is also included. And then increase or decrease in shareholding, either one. Okay, and lastly, foreign currency operation will be included as part of the group project. And lastly, the final examination. The final examination will have 3 questions. Okay, the first question will be on a complete set of consolidated financial statement. Okay, Q1, Q1, we can see from here, CSO, FP, CSOPL, and then accounting for associate, and increase in shareholding, increase or decrease in shareholding. Okay, that is question 1. And question 1 is 60 marks. 60 markah. Question 2 is theory. Theory covers introduction to relevant standard, introduction to business combination. And lastly, question 3. Question 3 is about consolidated statement of cash flow. Okay. Note for you, for the test, highlighted in green, either increase or decrease. Okay. And then for the group project, highlighted in yellow, either vertical or mixed. In the final exam, in addition to what you have learned, what you have learned in the semester, there will be prior topic. The topic that you have learned before FAR 620, one topic will be included. Incorporate prior knowledge or understanding from the previous accounting subject as part of the adjustment in the question, at least one. So I hope it is only one. So this is all about the topics to be covered and the week to cover, as well as the component of the ongoing assessment, as well as final examination, and also certain notes to be understood by all the students. Do you have any question? Okay, what book we are going to use? Okay, we are going to use Jane Laza. Jane Laza. I would like to encourage you to purchase the book. Okay, I will not force you, but I encourage you to purchase the book. The price of the book is about 65 ringgit. Okay, you can purchase on your own, and you can also share. Maybe one or two. So kalau 2 orang, 65 ringgit, seorang 32 ringgit setengah. Kalau 3 orang, berapa tu? Kalau 3 orang, 20 ringgit. 21, lebih kurang 22 ringgit lah. 22 ringgit seorang. Jadi you can share the book. Because some of the time we are going to use the book. Not all the time. Actually, we are going to learn everything in the book. But not all the time we are going to refer to the book. You are the one who will refer to the book. If there is any problem, for example, in terms of theory or in terms of calculation, you are going to refer to the book. Right? Okay. So, any question about the syllabus before we continue with chapter 1? Is there any? No?
No, sir.
No, okay. Okay, saya sebab ni kelas yang pertama ni, saya ulang balik nama-nama yang tadi saya kata mungkin tak datang. Muhammad Azamuddin ada tak? Masih tak ada. Muhammad Izzadin? Tak ada. Nur Azian?
Ada.
Siapa ada ni?
Izzadin.
Izzadin ada. Nur Azian? Azian tak ada. Nur Syahirah? Tak ada. Aiman Haikal?
Hadir ke?
Ada. Aina Fazira ada? Tak ada juga. Muhammad Zaim?
Ada, sir.
Ada. Muhammad Irfan? Tak ada juga. Muhammad Iqbal? Tak ada ya. Okey, senarai ni final lah kira kan. Yang hadir dan tak hadir. Okay, I share with you the first chapter. Okay, we hope we can finish the first chapter slides by today. If we cannot finish today, we are going to continue with the next tutorial. Okay, I share with you. Okay, so this is the one. Business combination and introduction to consolidated financial statement. Okay. So what are the course outcomes throughout the semester? At the end of the semester, you will be able to explain the consolidation concept in accordance with Malaysian Accounting Standard, MFRS. Secondly, you can perform the relevant measurement basis of consolidated financial statement based on Malaysian Financial Reporting Standard, MFRS. And number 3, construct the consolidated financial statement based on Malaysian Financial Reporting Standard. Okay, most of the mark is coming from CO3. Topic outcome, ability to explain different types of complex group structure. Okay, actually complex group structure is referring to vertical and mixed group. Fellow subsidiary is not complex. Okay, so we are going to go through them one by one. Later, determine the relationship between immediate parent and its subsidiary. Determine the relationship between intermediate parent and ultimate parent. Explain the different methods used in preparing financial statement for complex structure. We have two methods actually, single stage method and multi-stage method, but we are going to use only single stage method because multi-stage method is time consuming. Yeah, time consuming. We have only 3 hours to answer the final exam. Maybe if we use multi-stage method, we need more hours. Yeah. Prepare group financial statement using single stage method. Prepare group financial statement including CSOFP, CSOPL. You can see from here CSPOCI sebenarnya. CSOPL, OCI. Okay, and then CSOCIE, taking into account all intercompany balances and transactions including impairment of goodwill. And also to explain disclosure requirement of consolidated financial statement, including basis of consolidation, investment in subsidiary and investment in associate, as well as investment in joint venture. These are the standards that will be learned by you. Okay, that is MFRS 3, MFRS 10, MFRS 12, 124, and 127. And don't forget, we have also for certain chapter, we are going to learn about MFRS 128, associate and joint arrangement. Okay, so let's look at what is the definition of business combination. Okay, what is business combination? Business combination is to combine 2 or more businesses. Okay, to combine 2 or more businesses. Business combination arises when one entity control over another entity. You can imagine, you can visualize there are 2 entities. The first one is company A, second one is company B. Okay, you can visualize that company A is controlling company B. How company A is going to control company B? Company A, to control company B, company A must purchase certain percentage of shares in company B. It means company A become the shareholders of company B. Then only company A can control company B. According to MFRS 3, the title of MFRS is business combination. It defines business combination as a transaction or other event. A transaction or other event in which an acquirer obtains control of one or more businesses. So, if you control one or more businesses, it is a business combination. But before you can control, there will be a transaction. What is transaction? There is a sale and purchase. Sale and purchase of what? Sale and purchase of shares. Yeah, sale and purchase of shares that lead to the acquisition of control of one or more businesses. Okay, so business combination can happen in 2 ways. The first one is an entity acquires share capital of another. Okay, I have mentioned earlier. You want to control another company? Yeah, you have to acquire share capital of another company. How much? If you only acquire 10%, can you control that company? No. If you acquire 20%, no. If you acquire 40%, no. How much? How many percent? It will be more than 50%. Yeah? If you can acquire more than 50% of share capital of another company, then you can control that company. Number two, 2 entities exchange their issued share capital. Yeah? Company A issue shares to company B. Company B issue shares to company A. Okay, so by doing that, one company become the holding company, another company become the subsidiary company. Okay, kita akan tengok nanti macam mana dia boleh berlaku exchange of share capital become a business combination. Okay. So when business combination happen, acquirer and acquiree remain separate legal entity. Company A and company B still a separate legal entity. Company A will have to manage the affair, its own affair. Company B also will have to manage their own affair. Okay. But the difference now is A and B become a group of companies. Yeah, a group of companies. MFRS 10, the title of the standard is Consolidated Financial Statement, provide guidance to determine whether control exists or not. So the most important thing, we have to understand the word control. Okay. What is the meaning of control in bahasa? It means kawal. Kawal control tu maknanya kawal. When an entity acquires control over another entity, the acquirer means the acquirer of the shares become a holding company, or also known as a parent company. The acquiree, the company that sold the shares, is known as subsidiary. And holding and subsidiary form a group of companies. Form a group of companies. However, the acquirer and the acquiree, the holding and the subsidiary remain separate physically and legally. You still have to maintain and operate separately, as well as legally. The difference is you are now a group of companies and one party is controlling another party. Investor determine whether it is a parent. Investor determine whether it is a parent by assessing whether it controls the investee. So you have to check. You invest your money to purchase shares in another company, and to your knowledge, you acquire more than 50%. So you believe that you are controlling that company because you purchase more than 50%. You have purchased more than 50% shares in that company, so you believe that you have controlled that company. So you have checked. You have to check whether you really have the control over that particular company. Investor control investee if it has all the following. Number one, you have the power. You are said to have a control if you have the power. Now the question is, do you have the power over the investee? Okay. What is the evidence of power? You said you have the power. What is the evidence? The evidence is the exposure. You can expose yourself to the investee. You can go to investee. You can have the you can instruct the investee. Okay. Exposure yang pertama. Yang kedua, or rights. Rights to variable returns. You are said to have a power if you have the exposure or right to variable returns. What is the meaning of variable returns? Variable returns can be two meaning. The first one, a few types of returns. A few types of return. Pelbagai pulangan. Or variable returns means, you can change the value or the percentage of return from its involvement with the investee. And lastly, most importantly, ability to use the power over the investee to affect the amount of the investor return. So if you say you have the control, you must check whether you have the power. Okay, and the power is evidenced by exposure or right of variable return, as well as ability to use its power. If you have these three, then you have the control. Investor has to consider the following. Before you invest in a company and you want to control that company, you have to look at the purpose and design of the company. The purpose and design. What is the purpose of the company? The objective of the company. The design of the company. Is the company managed by the board of directors or not? Or managed by only one person? Who make decision? Is it the board of directors? Or only one person make decision? Or nobody can make decision? Or decision can be done by contract? Okay. So what are the relevant activities and how decision about the activities are made? Okay, relevant activities of the company. Is the company is selling and buying goods? Is the company is providing services? So we have to check the purpose of the company and who is going to make decision about all the activities. Number 3, whether the right of investor give it the current ability to direct the relevant activities. So if you become an investor and you become the majority shareholder, you have more than 50%, do you have the ability to direct the relevant activities? Or you do not have the ability. Number 4, whether the investor is exposed or has rights to variable returns from its involvement, and whether the investor has the ability to use its power to affect the amount of investors' return. Okay, number 4 and number 5 is the same as the items of number 2 and number 3 in previous page. Power over the investee. The power arises from existence of right. Power arises from existence of right. Just now, we said that you have the control if you have the power. And you have the power if you have the right. So, power arises from the existence of right. The power could result from what right? Voting right. If you have sufficient voting right, more than 50% of voting right, you have the power and you have the control. Sometimes, you do not have the power from the voting right because you have only 40% shares in another company. However, you have a contract. You have the contract stated that you have the power. You have the power to direct the relevant activities, then you have the power, even though you have less than 50%. Okay, so it can come from voting right. It can come from the rights embedded in contractual arrangement. The rights that give power include voting right. Voting right, whether it is 100% yours or you have insufficient, you have only 40%, but you also have potential voting right from convertible debenture. For example, you purchase ordinary share 40% and you purchase also convertible debenture. So you have the potential voting rights by having the convertible debenture. Secondly, right to appoint, reassign, or remove the key management personnel who direct the relevant activities. If you have the right to appoint, to reassign, or to remove the key management, who are the key management? The CEO, for example. Can you appoint the CEO? If the answer is yes, you have the power. If the answer no, you cannot. You cannot, then you do not have the power. The right to appoint or remove another entity that direct the relevant activities. Okay, sometimes the relevant activities, that is activity of sale, activity of purchase, activity of investment, activity of purchasing major assets. The right is not with the board of directors, but the right is with other parties. So, can you appoint or remove them? If you can appoint or remove them, then you have the power. B, the right to direct the investee to enter into or veto any changes to transaction for the benefit of the investor. If you have the right to direct the investee, okay, follow my word. Follow my word. Okay, you please enter into an agreement. Dia pun follow. Jadi kalau kita boleh buat macam tu, the rights to direct, hak untuk mengarah investee. Maknanya kita, company A has the right to direct the board of directors of investee. Then you have the power. And E are the rights such as decision-making rights specified in management contracts. Power is present when the investor holds directly or indirectly the majority of voting right potential voting rights, which give the investor the ability to direct the relevant activities. In theory, if you have more than 50%, directly or indirectly, you have the ability to direct the relevant activities. Voting right gives investor power over the investee. There are times when voting rights are limited to administration tasks only, and contractual arrangement determine the direction of the relevant activities. So this is very, very dangerous. You have more than 50%, but you do not have the power. You have more than 50%, but you do not have the power because the power is inside the contractual arrangement. In the contractual arrangement, it mentioned about who can make the direction of the relevant activities. In such case, investor need to assess the contractual arrangement to determine if it has the power over the investee. So, if the power is not with the board of directors, if the power is in the contractual arrangement, you have to check the contractual arrangement to check whether you will have the power or not. And it has to also consider the purpose and design of the investee. Yeah, the purpose and design of the investee. Voting right. When there is a lack of obvious significant right, the investor has to assess whether it has the practicability to direct the investee relevant activities unilaterally. So can you make decision as a person or as a company? You make decision unilaterally without asking people, can I do this? Can I do that? Some of the following consideration may aid the investor in determining whether it has the power or not. Okay. The indication is the investor can appoint or approve the investee key management personnel who direct the investee relevant activities. You can decide on your own. If yes, then you have the power. Secondly, the investor can direct the investee to enter into or veto any changes to significant transaction for the investee. For the investee governing body. If the answer is yes, you have the power. The investor can dominate the process to elect the investee governing body. You can choose who is becoming the director. Number 4, the investee key management personnel are related parties to the investor. Key management personnel related to the investor. Who are the key management personnel? The CEO, the managing director, the general manager, the top managers, related party to the investor. Then you are said to have the power because all those people are your relative. And number 5, the majority of the members of the investee governing body are related party to the investor. Voting right are only considered if the right are substantive. What is the meaning of substantive? Substantive here mean the shareholder has the practical ability to exercise the right. You said you have the right. The question is whether your right is substantive. Yeah. To be substantive, you have the power or you have the practical ability to exercise the right. Okay, the purpose and design of the instrument have to be considered to assess whether the potential voting right give rise to control. For example, what you acquire debenture, on top of you acquire ordinary share, and the debenture is convertible debenture. Okay, so when it is convertible into ordinary share. So let's say you acquire only 40% ordinary share. You are not controlling the company. You do not have the power. Yeah, you do not have the right to direct the relevant activities. But with the help of the other investment, you invest in convertible debentures, and the convertible debentures will increase your percentage once you convert the debenture into ordinary share. Judgment is required in considering whether the rights are substantive or not. Okay. And there are factors to be considered. Yeah, there are factors to be considered. Number one is economic barrier. Yeah, number one is economic barrier, halangan ekonomi. Yeah, halangan ekonomi. For example, what? For example, you purchase 40% ordinary share. So you cannot control the company, but you have the convertible debentures. Okay. So what is economic barrier that relate to this situation? Example is financial penalty, incentive that prevent holder from exercising the right. You have the convertible debenture, but when you exercise, yeah, you are going to be penalized. You have to pay the penalty. Yeah, macam pelik kan? You have the right to convert your debenture, but you have to pay penalty. The exercise or conversion price that may create a financial barrier to exercise or conversion. Okay. Ataupun when you want to convert your debenture into ordinary share, the conversion price is very high. Yeah, conversion price is very high. For example, market price is RM2. But when you want to convert, the conversion price is RM3. RM3. So it is unfavorable. It is very high exercise price. Sometimes also you have the regulatory barrier. Yeah, regulatory barrier. For example, okay, please Google. Please go to Google and find who are the shareholders of Proton. Yeah, who are the shareholders of Proton. Okay, kita keluar sekejap daripada nota ni. Okay. Kita pergi dekat Google. Ya, kita pergi dekat Google. Kita search shareholders of Proton. Okay, jumpa tak? Who are the shareholders of Proton? Jumpa tak? Jumpa? Who are the shareholders? Siapakah shareholders Proton? Jumpa tak di RB Highcom?
Jumpa, sir.
Jumpa. Okay, di RB Highcom dia ada berapa persen?
50.1%.
50.1%. Okay. So, boleh tak dia control dengan 50.1%?
Boleh.
Boleh sebab more than 50%. Okay. Another shareholder is who? Who is the another shareholder? Siapakah shareholder yang kedua?
Gili.
Gili kan? Gili, how many percent?
49.9.
49.9%. Beza sikit je, 0.2. Kan? Satu 50.1, satu 49.9. Sikit je beza dia. Kenapa Gili ni, dia ada 49.9%, bukan dia ada more than 50%? Sebab ada halangan dari segi regulation. Halangan dari segi regulation, Malaysian government prohibits outsiders from purchasing more than 50% or exceeding 50% shares in Malaysian company. Malaysian company. Jadi Proton ni adalah Malaysian company established in Malaysia. So 49% saja dia bagi. 49.9%. Tak sampai 50%. Sikit lagi nak sampai 50%. Dan di RB Highcom dia ada 50.1%. Jadi kalau katakan kita ambil cerita tentang substantive right ni, katalah ya, Gili ni dapat beli 49.9%. Kemudian dia ada beli juga convertible debenture yang boleh kita convert dia menjadi ordinary share sebanyak 20%. Jadi boleh tak Gili ni exercise dia punya convertible debentures? Boleh tak? Tak boleh kan? Walaupun dia ada, dia beli debenture tadi, that can be converted into 20% of the ordinary share, tapi tak boleh nak convert sebab apa? Sebab halangan. Halangan dari segi apa? Halangan dari segi peraturan. Peraturan daripada kerajaan ni. Bawah sekali ni, regulatory barrier. The government regulation prohibit outside company to purchase more than 50% or exceed 50%. Jadi dia dapat 49.9%. Kalau ikutkan duit dia banyak lah. Duit dia banyak, bukan tak ada duit. Tapi the government regulation prohibit them from purchasing more than 50%. So that is an example. Okay. And then yang keduanya, whether an agreement of other parties who hold such right is required. Whether an agreement of other parties who hold such right is required. More parties holding such right may make the potential voting right less substantive. Kan, contohnya, yang tadi jugalah. You have 40% plus convertible debentures. Kemudian another party, 40% with convertible debentures also. So there are many people, more than one people that have the potential voting right. So, masalah. Number 3, the benefit that can be derived from exercising the right. For example, investor benefit from increase in the voting right. For example, money, other benefits such as synergy. And lastly, the right should be currently exercisable. To be substantive, the right must be currently exercisable. Boleh kita convert sekarang. Okay, so kita ada 4 example kat sini in page 308. Okay, example tentang apa ni, substantive or not substantive ni. Tapi kita akan cover selepas break. Kita akan ada break 5 minit. Kemudian kita akan sambung dengan this 4 example. Jadi kita berhenti sekejap. Kita pause sekejap. Kita akan sambung lagi selepas break 5 minit. Okey, kita sambung semula. Kita lihat ada okey, saya terkeluar tadi daripada ni. Dengar tak tadi saya cakap tentang example 1?
Tak dengar, sir.
Oh, tak dengar. Saya bercakap sorang-sorang lah tadi. Okey, tentang example 1 ni. Example 1, investor Z and he each hold 60% and 40% of the voting right of an investee. Jadi ada dua investor, Z dan he, masing-masing pegang 60 dan 40. Okey, persoalannya kita nak tahu sama ada right yang ada pada he ini substantif ataupun tidak. Kita baca cerita dia. So, investor he has also option to acquire 1/2 of the voting right of investor Z. Maknanya dia boleh acquire 50% daripada 60%. Jadi dia akan ada 40 campur 30, menjadikan dia 70. The option is exercisable but it's not economically beneficial for he to exercise the option. Currently, investor Z has been exercising its right and actively directing the relevant activities of the investee. Okey, jadi kita nak tahu sama ada right yang ada pada he tadi substantif ataupun tidak. Jadi jawapan dia tak substantif. Dia ada right but not substantif. Sebab apa? Sebab conversion ataupun option, exercising of the option tadi not beneficial. Tidak memberi kebaikan pada dia. Kenapa kita kata tidak memberi kebaikan? Sebab apa? Sebab Z ni, Z dapat 60, dia kata dia ada kontrol. Bila dia ada 60%, dia kata dia ada kontrol. Lepas dia ada kontrol, dia exercise dia punya power. Apa power dia ada? Power dia adalah power to direct the relevant activities. Jadi dia terus buat directing the relevant activities tadi. Dia dapat 60% terus direct relevant activities. Jadi tak ada chance lah untuk he untuk meneruskan cita-cita dia untuk mendapatkan 30% daripada saham yang dimiliki oleh Z. Jadi maknanya he punya right, his right is not substantive. Itu yang pertama. Contoh yang kedua, investor S, T and U hold 1/3 of the voting right of Z. Investor S also hold convertible debts. Jadi kita ada S, T, U, tetapi S ni ada special. Dia ada convertible debts. That can be converted into ordinary share of he. Investor S and investor Z business are closely related. Jadi S ada special. Dia ada 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 STU. Tetapi S ni dia ada special, dia ada convertible debts. Maknanya kalau dia exercise saja dia punya convertible debts, dia akan melebihi T dan U. Jadi soalan dia, adakah rights of S is substantive? Itu soalan dia. If the debt were converted, S would hold 65% of the voting right of Z. Jadi dia menjadi majority shareholder. Asalnya cuma 33.33. Apabila dia convert dia punya debt, dia menjadi 65%. Investor S would benefit from the converting of the debt as it may reap benefits of synergy. It can be concluded that S has the power over investee Z by virtue of the shares it holds and the potential voting right which are substantive. Jadi kat sini, the right of S is substantive. Soalan satu tadi, example 1, the right of he is not substantive. Nombor 2, the right of S is substantive. Nombor 3, Sam hold 40% of the voting right of Ram, 10 other shareholders each hold 6% of the voting right, but there is no contractual arrangement to consult any of others to make collective decision. Sam ada 40%, orang lain ada 60%. 60% tu macam mana dapat? 10 orang kali 600. Okey. Soalan dia, adakah Sam ni mempunyai substantive right? Adakah Sam mempunyai substantive right dengan 40%? Here, the absolute size of Sam holding and the relative size of other shareholding alone are not sufficient to determine if Sam has the power over Ram. Jadi maknanya tidak ada perbincangan di antara Sam dengan shareholder lain. Sepatutnya Sam ni dia contact 2 shareholder saja pun dah cukup dah. Kan? Dua shareholder dapat 6 kali 2, 12 dah. 40 campur 12, 52. Tapi dia tak buat. Begitu juga dengan 10 shareholder tadi. Dia pun tak ada contact each other. Kan? Gabung 10 orang, dapatlah 60%. Tak ada. Jadi tidak ada siapa yang mempunyai substantive right dekat sini. Number 4, Lim hold 45% of the voting right of SIM. Two others hold 26%. And another 3 is 1%. Jadi 45, 26, 1, 1, 1. 45, 26, 1, 1, 1. There is no contractual arrangement to consult any of others to make collective decision. Here, the size of Lim and the relative size of other shareholding alone are insufficient to determine if Lim has the power over SIM. Jadi kat sini pun tak jelas juga. Patutnya SIM ni, dia negotiate lah dengan another 26%. 45 campur 26. Dah berapa dah? Kan? 45 campur 26 dah berapa? Okey. Ataupun 26 kali 2. 26 kali 2, 52. Pun boleh dapat kuasa juga. Tapi tidak berlaku. Tidak berlaku maknanya nobody contact each other. So untuk nombor 3, nombor 4, not substantive. Nobody is controlling. Nombor 1, Z is controlling. He, no substantive right. Number 2, S has substantive right. Okey, kita tutup dulu yang itu. Kita masuk semula kepada sambungan. Okay. Majority of voting rights. MFRS 10 state that where an investor hold more than 1/2 of the voting right of an investee, the investor has power over in the following situation. Okay. Yang pertama, the power over the relevant activities are directed. Yeah. Relevant activities are directed by a vote of the holder of majority of the voting right. Yang kedua, a majority of the member of the governing body that direct the relevant activities are appointed by a vote of the shareholder of majority voting right. Sometimes you have majority voting right, but you do not have the power. Example is you have more than 50% shares in government control company. The investor may hold the majority of the voting right, but investor voting right may not be substantive because okay, because you do not have the current ability to direct the relevant activities. That is through the determining the operating and financing policies of the investee. So if you are a majority shareholder in government control companies, your voting right is not substantive. Power without majority of voting right, known as de facto control. An investor may have power even though it holds less than a majority of voting right of an investee. Examples are A, a contractual agreement between investor and other investor. So you have only 35% and you collaborate with another party which has 16%. 35 plus 16. 51%. The investor has voting right and other decision-making right, which give the investor the right to direct the relevant activities. So, if you have more than 50% by your own or with agreement, you can have the right to decision-making. Yeah, the investor has the practical ability to direct the relevant activities unilaterally. For example, Ace Berhad hold 45% of voting right in BCE. 45% only. Yeah. Just now, with 45%, you cannot control. But at this time, if you have 45% and the remaining voting right are held by numerous investors, none holding more than 1%. The other shareholders is less than 1%. or less than 1%. You have 45%, the rest only 0.5, 0.2, 0.1, 0.9, not more than 1%. So in that situation, those who hold 45% will have the practical ability to direct the relevant activity. Alright? And D, the existence of potential voting right. And E, combination of any of the above. Control without majority. There are also situations where control is present even though the parent owns less than 1/2 of the voting power, such as when the parent has the power over more than 1/2 of the voting right by way of agreement. Ini sama dengan yang tadi lah. The power. When you have the power that is coming from your holding and other parties holding, you can govern the financial and operating policy of the company under the statute or under the agreement. What are the power? The power to appoint or remove the majority of members of the board of directors, and the power to cast majority of votes at meeting of the board of directors. Okay, so if you have that, okay, if you have that power by your own or by combination with other parties, then you are actually controlling another company. Potential voting right and substantive right. Okay, instrument, for example, share option, warrant can be converted into ordinary shares of another entity, can give rise to potential voting right as if they are exercised or converted now, and give investor an increase in voting power, or reduce the voting power of other investors in the investee. The existence and effect of potential voting shares should be considered when assessing whether an entity has control over another entity. Potential voting right are only considered if the right are substantive. Okay, just now we have discussed substantive, not substantive. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Holding of majority of voting right in the investee makes the investor voting right substantive. Okay. Yang ini tak berapa penting sangat. Protective right designed to protect the interest of the holder but not give holder power over the investee. What is relevant activity? Just now we talk a lot about relevant activity. To direct relevant activity, to direct relevant activity, to direct relevant activity. What are relevant activities? Activities of selling and purchasing of goods or services. Managing financial asset, researching for development of new product, selecting, acquiring, disposing asset, and determining a funding structure or obtaining funding. These are relevant activities. Are these activities important in business? The answer is yes. So if you have the power to direct all these activities, it is said that you have a control. Decision on relevant activities including establishing operating and capital decision, including budget, appointing, remunerating, and terminating the investee key management personnel or service providers. These are also relevant activities. Okay, what is variable return? I said just now, variable return has two meanings. The investor has the ability to use its power over the investee to affect the amount of the investor return from its involvement with the investee. The return can be in the form of dividend, in the form of fees, exposure to loss. We are not only talking about revenue or profit, but we are also exposed to loss from providing credit support, remuneration for servicing investees' asset or liabilities, and also return as a result of achieving synergies or economies of scale by combining the asset of the investor and investee. So the investor has to assess whether it has the power or not on the power over the relevant activities, number 1. Number 2, are they exposed to the variability of return? And most importantly, whether they can use the power to affect the return. Okay, these are the structure of group. The first one is fellow subsidiaries. Fellow subsidiaries where You have one holding company and you have, yeah, where you have the subsidiaries. We have how many subsidiaries? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you acquire 55% in S1, S1 is your subsidiary. You acquire 100% of S2, S2 is your subsidiary. You acquire 75% in S3, S3 is your subsidiary. S4, 68%, S4 is your subsidiary. S5, 85%, it is your subsidiary also. As long as it is more than 50%, they are your subsidiaries. This is known as fellow subsidiaries. Yeah, fellow subsidiaries. What about the second picture? The second picture is HSSS. This is what? This is the second category. Yeah, the second category just now. What is the second category? Okay, whereby H has 100% interest in S. So S is a subsidiary of H. At the same time, S is having 90% interest in SS. So SS is the subsidiary of S and S is the holding of SS. Okay. Jadi kat sini ada dua level. Ada dua level Between S and SS, S is the intermediate parent. SS is the subsidiary. Okay. Who is the ultimate parent? H is the ultimate parent. So directly, S is a subsidiary of H and SS is indirectly a subsidiary of H. The same goes to picture 3. Yeah, picture 3, H has 60% in S has 90% in SS. Okay. So what will be the consequence of this? The consequence is acquirer will record acquisition as investment and will receive dividend from the subsidiary. Now, you want to know on how to identify a business combination. Okay, according to MFRS 3, an acquirer may gain control over an acquiree in the following way. Okay, you want to gain a control over an acquiree. It means you want to purchase more than 50% shares in acquiree. You have to make a transfer of asset. It means when you buy something, you have to pay. When you buy shares, you have to pay the price of the shares. So how are you going to pay for the price? Number one, you can transfer your asset to the existing shareholders. Transfer your asset. It can be in the form of cash. It can be in the form of cash equivalent. It can be in the form of other asset, including net asset. Can you pay by using your building? The answer is yes, you can. Can you pay by using your motor vehicle? Yes. Because you transfer your asset to purchase the shares. If your asset is insufficient, not enough, you can incur liabilities. You can issue debentures, you can issue bond, and you can also issue your own shares. Or you can give a combination of the consideration mentioned in A to C. Asset plus liability plus equity. Or E, not transferring any consideration, including through a contract. Yeah. For example, acquiree buy back a sufficient equity shares. Buyback. Ya, buyback. Maknanya you tak payah bayar apa-apa. Katakan you ada 40%. Kemudian acquiree buyback. Buyback shares daripada orang lain. Bukan daripada awak, daripada orang lain. Dia buyback. Jadi awak punya percentage naik daripada 40% jadi 55%. Tak payah bayar apa-apa. Yang kedua, minority shareholders. Veto right that prevent acquirer lapse. Yang ketiga, acquirer and acquiree enter into a contract to combine their business. Okay, ini business combination. Business combination can be acquisition of asset, acquisition of real net asset, or acquisition of control. When there is a business combination, the acquisition can be acquisition of the real asset. You purchase the land, you purchase the building, you purchase the current asset, you purchase the liability. That can be done. Or acquisition of control. It means you do not acquire the real asset, but you acquire the shares. Yeah, you acquire the shares. So by acquiring the shares, you actually acquire the control. And this is our focus. Yeah, our focus is number 2, that is acquire control, not acquire net asset. Exemption from preparing consolidated financial statement. Okay, you can see just now in this diagram, H will have to prepare the consolidated financial statement. H. In picture number 1, H here. In picture number 2, S and H. In picture number 3, S and H. Okay. They can be exempted from preparing the consolidated financial statement if the parent itself is a wholly owned subsidiary or partially owned subsidiaries. Macam keadaan yang ni. Ni. S. S here is a wholly owned subsidiary of H. So S is exempted. Here, S is not wholly owned subsidiary because H only holds 60% interest in S. But if other shareholders allow S not preparing the consolidated financial statement, then S will be exempted. That's number 1. Number 2, the parent debt or equity instrument are not traded in public market. Okay, you are not a listed company, so you are exempted from preparing the consolidated financial statement. Number 3, the parent is not in the process of issuing shares in the public market, so you do not have the intention to be a public company. And number 4, the ultimate or any other intermediate parent produces consolidated financial statement. So, who is going to prepare the consolidated financial statement? Jadi tanggungjawab dia pergi kepada H, the ultimate parent. Ultimate parent. S boleh dikecualikan. S boleh dikecualikan. All 4 conditions must exist for a parent to be exempted from preparing and presenting consolidated financial statement. Okay. Exclusion from consolidation. Pengecualian ataupun tidak termasuk. Exclusion ni dikeluarkan ataupun tidak termasuk. Siapa yang boleh tidak termasuk dalam consolidation? MFRS 10 allows non-consolidation of a subsidiary only when the investment in the investee are those held for sale in accordance with MFRS 5. In accordance with MFRS 5. Okay, for example, warna merah ni. If you invest in more than 50% ordinary share in investee and you want to control, okay, what you have to do? You have to consolidate the subsidiary. In second situation, you invest in more than 50% ordinary share in investee, but you do not want to control. You do not want to control. You want to sell. If the price go up, you want to sell. Then, not consolidated. Secondly, parent lost control. Parent lost control. Mula-mula ada 60%. Lepas tu tinggal 40% saja. Jadi tak payahlah kita consolidate. Ataupun yang ketiga, subsidiary that is acquired by view to sell can be excluded from consolidation provided the sale is take place within 12 months and management is actively seeking a buyer. Okay, boleh dikecualikan. Reverse acquisition. Reverse acquisition can happen, ya. Look at example 5 in page 315. Tetapi telah diringkaskan di sini. H has 2 million ordinary share of RM1 each. S, 4 million ordinary share of RM1 each. Siapa lebih besar? tentulah H lebih besar. Sorry, S lebih besar sebab S ada 4 million. H ada 2 million. Tetapi H dia nak acquire S. H nak control S. Jadi dia pun buat share exchange. Pertukaran saham. Through the share exchange, H offer 2 ordinary share in H for every share in S. Jadi, apakah dia punya pertukaran? Saya nak beli awak punya 4 juta saham. Setiap saham saya akan bagi 2 saham saya. Jadi saya akan keluarkan 8 juta saham. Maknanya, daripada saya ada 2 juta saham, sekarang ni saya ada 10 juta saham. 2 juta saham yang lama campur dengan 8 juta saham yang baru. Jadi saya ada 10 juta saham. Okey, nampak macam saya menjadi lebih besar. Daripada 2 juta jadi 10 juta. Tetapi apa sebenarnya yang berlaku? Apa sebenarnya yang berlaku? S masih lagi maintain dengan 4 million. H menjadi 10 million. Tapi apa sebenarnya berlaku? As a result, the previous shareholders of S hold 8 million. That is 80% shares out of 10 million shares of H. Yeah? Previous shareholders of S hold 8 million shares in H. 8 million out of 10 million in H. Jadi siapa yang berkuasa sekarang? Mula-mula H nak menguasai S. Tetapi sebaliknya apa yang berlaku adalah X shareholders of S kini telah menguasai H. So dia jadi terbalik. Ya? H akan jadi subsidiary dan S akan menjadi holding. Ya? Itu kita panggil reverse acquisition. Okey. Lepas tu kita akan ada group structure, fellow structure, vertical structure, mixed group. Okey, yang ni saya nak minta awak baca dalam buku ya. Dia dalam buku. Apa lagi? Consideration transfer. Untuk beli kita kena bayar. Okey. Consideration transfer. The investor transfer consideration to acquire a controlling interest in the acquiree. The value in the shares, the value of the shares acquired are recorded as investment and disclosed as non-current asset. For example, H acquire shares in S. Jadi berapa banyak yang dibayar? Dibayar sebanyak 1 million. So dia akan debit investment in S 1 million. Dia bayar dengan apa? Dia bayar dengan tunai ke? Dengan debenture ke? Dengan ordinary share ke? So dia akan credit cash or debenture or ordinary share. Debit investment in S, credit cash or debenture or ordinary share capital. The consideration transferred will be measured at fair value of the asset transferred by the acquirer. Liabilities incurred by the acquirer. Equity instrument issued by the acquirer. Or contingent consideration. Okay, yang ni pun saya nak minta awak baca example 6, muka surat 318 dan example 7, muka surat 319. Kalau ada masa lagi di kelas-kelas yang akan datang, kita akan bincangkan. Tapi saya nak awak baca dulu. Consolidation method, ada one method, iaitu acquisition method. Apakah acquisition method ni? Number one, we identify who is the acquirer. Who is the acquirer? H or S? Next, determine acquisition date. Bila tarikhnya? Recognize and measure fair value of net asset and also non-controlling interest. Okay, you want to acquire shares of a company, you will be based on the fair value of net asset. Yeah, the share will be based on the fair value of net asset. For example, you have a net asset of 1 million. So when you want to purchase the shares of the company, you are going to base on that. And then secondly, you are going to calculate the non-controlling interest. Non-controlling interest is what? This is another party other than the holding company. Let's say you acquire 60%. There is another party with 40%. The 40% shareholders is collectively known as non-controlling interest. Okay. And then you are going to compare your investment with fair value of net asset plus non-controlling interest. And you are going to get whether a goodwill or bargain purchase. Okay. And business combination is viewed from the perspective of the acquirer, not acquiree. Okay. Another example, example 3 in page 338, please read. Okay, example 4 in page 341, please read. In consolidated financial statement, non-controlling interest in net asset of S are identified and presented as an equity, but separately from the parent equity. Non-controlling interest is recognized on acquisition date either at fair value of shares. So just now we mentioned that the holding acquire 60% and another party acquire 40%. Let's say the company has 1 million shares. 60% mean 600,000. 40% mean 400,000. So what is the fair value of the shares on that date? Let's say the fair value is 1 ringgit and 20 cents. So the fair value of non-controlling interest is 400,000 times 1 ringgit and 20 cents. Okay. So it is equal to 480. Yeah, 480,000. Or secondly, the non-controlling interest can be measured based on proportionate share of the fair value of net asset of the subsidiary. So if the net asset of the subsidiary is 1 million, 40% of 1 million is 400,000. Just now, based on fair value of shares, it is 480,000. Based on fair value of net asset, it is 400,000. Again, you have to go through this example, example 5, in page 343 up to 346. Very interesting one, eh? Example, Ash acquired 75% interest in S, therefore 25% is NCI. So NCI 25% of fair value of net asset of S. Fair value of net asset of S comprised of ordinary share capital 800,000, retained earning 100,000, altogether 900,000. So what is the amount of non-controlling interest? The amount is 25% times 900,000 equal to 225,000. Okay, I said net asset, but why we are referring to ordinary share and retained earning? Okay, what is net asset? Net asset is total asset minus total liability. Okay, total asset minus total liability is equal to net asset. Net asset is equal to equity. Equity comprised of ordinary share and retained earning. So, can we use the ordinary share and retained earning to represent the net asset? The answer is yes. Okay, so the net asset of the company is 900,000 times 25% equal to 225,000. In the consolidated financial statement, the non-controlling interest in net asset of S are identified and presented as equity, but separately from the parent equity. Yeah, where non-controlling interest is recognized on acquisition date either at fair value or at fair value of net asset. Ini kita dah tengok tadi. Okay. Lepas tu, sila tengok example of impairment of goodwill, muka surat 356, dan impairment of full goodwill, muka surat 356 dan 357. Okay, second last page. What is actually consolidation procedure? We combine the parent financial statement and subsidiary financial statement. And lastly, these are the 3 steps. Yeah, the 3 steps of consolidation procedure. Step 1, we combine like item. Asset of holding plus asset of subsidiary. Liabilities of holding plus liabilities of subsidiary. Equity of holding plus equity of subsidiary. Alright, step 2, we offset the carrying amount of investment in subsidiary and the portion of equity of the subsidiary. Okay. And number 3, eliminate in full intra-group asset and liabilities. Equity, income, expenses, cash flow relating to transaction between entities of the group. For example, you have intercompany sale. The first party is the seller, the second party is the buyer. So what we are going to do, we are going to eliminate the sale and we are going to eliminate the cost of sale. Example saja tu. Dan last sekali, this is the way to calculate the goodwill. Jadi kita memang kena sampai ke sini sebab saya akan bagi ataupun telah bagi soalan untuk cuba dibuat. Jadi kita nak calculate goodwill ataupun bagian purchase ni, kita kena compare consideration transferred plus dan controlling interest. Okay. Consideration transfer tadi boleh jadi asset saja, boleh jadi equity saja, boleh jadi combination of the three, boleh jadi tambah dengan yang keempat, contingent consideration. Kemudian non-controlling interest, pilih satu saja. Sama ada method 1 ataupun method 2. Kemudian kita campurkan consideration transfer dengan non-controlling interest untuk dapatkan satu amount, one amount that we call investment. Fair value of investment. Kemudian kita compare dengan fair value of net asset of the subsidiary. So kalau kita diberikan total asset dan total liability, kita boleh gunakan, tapi biasanya tidak diberi. Apa yang diberi? Apa yang diberi biasanya adalah equity. Jadi kita akan compare total equity dengan fair value of investment, compare with fair value of asset, fair value of net asset. Kita akan dapat sama ada goodwill ataupun bargain purchase. Okay. Jadi saya rasa itu saja untuk hari ini. Kena habiskan juga. Dan homework banyak tadi bagi apa? Tengok example-example dan juga soalan on how to calculate goodwill. Okay, kelas? Ya. Ada apa-apa soalan? Ada 1-2 minit lagi. Ada apa-apa soalan? So mungkin dia akan soal pada kelas yang akan datang. Lepas ni baca balik nota yang saya beri ni. Kemudian tengok soalan yang saya bagi dan in the next class, when is our next class? Is it on Thursday?
Betul, sir.
Okay, jadi insyaAllah kita jumpa lagi pada hari Khamis ya. Kalau nak tanya soalan apa saja boleh tanya. So kita sudahi kelas kita pada pagi ini dengan surah Wal-As. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Welcome.
sir.
Welcome.
Sir.
Welcome.